long day, I am sure. I see somebody yawning, which is totally fun. No, I am sure, I called him out. I am sure it's a very overwhelming, long day. I don't know how many of you just started looking into this, how many have been looking into it for a while. How many of you is this sort of your first foray into finding out some information? All right. So, and how many are totally overwhelmed already? No, that, you know, either today's a really good day or you're the only honest person. So thanks for coming. I will try to give you a bit of a snapshot. I can tell you a little bit about myself, but I also feel like I want to just speak in terms of what's important when you're going down this road. So I am Meryl Rosenberg, and I started helping intended parents along their path to becoming parents about 23 years ago. So I've been doing this probably longer than most, a very long time. Come on in and kind of see. And our goal is to help intended parents sort of manage what I call the minefield of surrogacy and assisted reproductive technologies, because I know it needs to be done every step of the way. I am an attorney. I do run the program. We are a small boutique program outside of DC in the Maryland area. Oh, cool. Yay.
We're DC.
Good, great. So for those of you who don't know, DC is not very surrogacy friendly. I actually have been working with the legislature there to try to change that. They keep promising, but they keep getting sidelined by other things that they think are more important, but we're working. I did draft the legislation, so we're working on it, but it's been taking a lot longer than we thought. So I do advocate for legislation to make surrogacy more friendly and open to everybody and access. That's one of the things that's really important to me. I see my mission in this field as helping you become parents the best way possible. And it's really important to make sure you're asking those good, hard questions along the way in terms of not only experience and expertise, but what are those really important questions in finding that right program to help you manage this. You want to build the right team along the way, and I think you've heard some today from other people who've gone through this, and you're going to hear some more later, and there's a lot of information, but you want to make sure, first of all, that the right screening is being done. If surrogacy is the route you take, you want to make sure that the proper screening is being done for potential surrogate matches for you before moving forward. There are best practices out there that are put out by attorneys such as myself, but also by American Society for Reproductive Medicine in terms of screening. And there's a lot that should go into the screening process so that by the time a surrogate applicant is potentially matched with you and you talk about whether that's a good match or not, a lot of screening should have been taken place, including the psychological evaluation and medical clearance of that surrogate. Because the last thing you want to do is walk in the door with to your fertility center very excited, and your fertility center scratch their head and think, why are you here with this person? So you really want to find out, how are the surrogates being screened? I know our process is very extensive. It takes probably a good 2 to 3 months to screen each and every candidate, because there's a lot involved. The thing that takes the longest really is the psychological, because it has to be scheduled. It usually is a couple of appointments. We wait for the report from the psychologist or social worker to make before we'll match. And also what goes into that is making sure that the matching program is aware of which fertility center you're working with, because every fertility center is a little different with respect to who they will take. And so if they're not aware, if that's not being taken into consideration, again, you could arrive essentially to the fertility center with your surrogate, and they might screen her out right away if it's not matching their standards too. So that's really important as well. But you know, our goal is always to make sure you're being matched with someone who's emotionally stable, financially stable, no financial assistance. You understand the issues around insurance. Insurance can be a big issue. It can be very costly. I know more about insurance than I ever wanted to know about insurance. And as you probably know, it changes all the time under Obamacare. So those are things that we know going into it. So when we're talking about what expenses and what fees to expect with respect to a particular match with a surrogate, you want to make sure that you're getting all of that information. We don't want any big surprises down the road. So we talk about all the what ifs. What are the potential expenses for that person? What is the fee for that person? There are definitely norms. This has become an industry, for better or for worse, and there are sort of norms in the industry, but there's also outliers. And I can tell you for us, we certainly do not work with gestational carriers that come to us and say they would like a fee of $45,000, $65,000, those kinds of things. It does exist out there, but that's not something, we're interested. We work with women who are really motivated to do this because they want to help you have a family, and that's really what drives them. And I think if you haven't gone down this road, I take this process very much for granted, having worked with hundreds of these amazing women. And I think until you start down this path and you actually meet with one of these people, it's really hard to imagine who is this person that we're going to trust carrying our baby, and how do we know? How do we trust them? And at the end of the day, if we all meet together and you meet with this person and you don't have that sense of trust, you shouldn't work together. Because we have an airtight contract that we go through, and it covers everything and anything you can possibly imagine, but at the end of the day, you have to trust each other. And it goes both ways, too. It's definitely a relationship. You heard this earlier, I think, from on the panel, if you were here. There's no right or wrong to that relationship. Every relationship grows organically over time. I think it's really important, if there's certain things that are really important to you going into it, that you discuss that with myself if we're working together, or with whomever is working to help match you. We work very hard to match people together that we think will work well together. It's not just a matter of, when you retain me and you're next to be matched. We don't create a wait list. We don't think of you as we don't think of you as a list. We think of you as people looking to try to build their family, to have a family. And we want you working with that right person. And so that's a conversation that happens together. And if you have a sense of what kind of relationship you might be looking for, that's great to share, but most people have no idea. And the surrogate really wants to take her cues from you. She is doing this because she wants to help you have a family. But at the end of the day, she's going to look to you to see how often do you want to speak on the phone, do you want to text, do you want to Skype. There's so many different methods and ways to connect with each other, but you really need to connect, because she's doing this for you to have a baby. She's not doing this for herself to have a baby. It's so interesting. I often hear from surrogates, I'm doing this for very selfish reasons, and so I want to know why. And they'll tell me, this is very common, because I love being pregnant, but I don't want any more children. And I think to myself, oh my God, if that's your selfish reason, that's unbelievable. And I hear this frequently. It's really quite amazing. And so they're there for you. They try to take the best possible care for themselves. Sometimes I really think they take better care of themselves for this than their own children, because they know they're doing this for somebody else. And they want to do the right thing for you. But again, you want to click with that person, and you will. I know you will, because I've done hundreds of these, but I think sitting there, you're nodding your head, but it's true. You don't have any idea. It's a little Twilight Zone, I think. You don't have any idea who this wonderful person is that you're going to trust. But when you meet each other, you will have that sense of trust to move forward, and her too. You want to feel that connection, and it will grow over time. Some people become very close and stay close. Some people are, close during the process, because by nature of what you're doing, and then go their separate ways. And there's no right or wrong to that. But for some, it is important to know that potentially there can be a long-term relationship, and that's fine, but that's also really good to share at the beginning. The more you share with the folks that are helping you, the program, the facilitating program, the agency that are helping you with this process, the better. Again, to me, open communication amongst everybody is critical. We take every case very personally. That's why we are a smaller boutique agency on purpose, because I feel like that personal connection is critical to ensuring sort of the best, safest journey for you along the way. Very much, we work very closely with the fertility centers around the country. It is completely up to you as intended parents to choose the fertility center. And I think everybody chooses differently. Some people choose based on location. Some people choose based on success rate and location. For sure, financial packages make a difference, and every fertility center is different with respect to the financial packages they offer. So you want to ask those questions. Some have shared risk programs, some have certain guarantee programs, and I think that's really important for you guys along the way. So I want to take a couple of minutes, because we have such a short time. I want to address some of your concerns instead of just me talking at you. I want to know just if anybody has burning questions so far that have come up today that you want me in particular to address, and don't be shy, please.
Are your surrogates mostly in the DC area? Or?
Oh, that's a great question. No, we actually get, we recruit and market and advertise all around the country. We get surrogates from surrogacy-friendly states all over. Many of our surrogates are up and down the East Coast and Midwest, and some from out West because of how we target our marketing. Because most of our intended parents that are from all over the world are working with fertility centers on the East Coast or Midwest, but some are working from the West Coast too. So we try to make sure we're very much taking into account in terms of the right match for you guys, location and what's important to you, because we're not gonna match you with somebody who, if you want somebody within a 4-hour drive from where you are, we're not gonna match you with somebody who's on the West Coast if you're located on the East Coast. The other big question in matching, if you haven't heard this already, is your philosophy regarding termination of a pregnancy. Because even though we don't expect there to be an issue, we don't want there to be one. And that's a really hard question, especially if you're a couple, to come on the same page with each other, let alone being able to share that. And it's not about what your decision is, it's about decision making. So for example, if you want that option open to request under certain circumstances, that's gonna be very important to know moving forward with a match. Because we would never want to see you in a situation that you're working with a gestational carrier that isn't on the same page you are, and you find yourself in a situation that you're at odds with each other. At the end of the day, it is ultimately her decision because it's her body. And so, whether you're aware or not, no court in the United States would ever order a woman to terminate a pregnancy. So I have to say that's probably a question we spend many hours speaking to them individually, speaking to you individually, all of us talking about together as a group. There usually is a group mental health meeting with a mental health professional. You're going to speak about it again, and it's going to be in the contract, very detailed. If they didn't comply, they wouldn't be in breach of the contract, but nobody's going to force them to terminate that pregnancy. And at the end of the day, that baby is still your baby, because legally it's not hers. So that question, even though it's the hardest question to answer, we spend a lot of time on it because we don't want to ever be in a situation like that, even though they're rare. So that's going to be really important.
Has your agency ever been in a situation like that?
Thankfully not. The only bumps we've seen over 23 years are medical ones we can't control for, and that happens in life. Sometimes there are miscarriages, sometimes it doesn't work. We certainly can't promise ever how many tries. That's the one question I get a lot, and I say, I'm the lawyer, not the doctor. That's a great medical question, because that's, often I get that question. I would say, you can take more than one try, even when you're using a donor and a gestational carrier, but thankfully we've not had, a situation. We've probably had about 3 situations in all of these years that have chosen to terminate for medical reasons. And I will tell you, the other thing you really want to spend time on is discussing all the what-ifs with the IVF practice that you're working with, including transferring 1 embryo or 2 embryos. That comes up a lot, and I've seen it coming more and more, coming up more frequently with applicants. They are requesting single embryo transfer if possible, because they're very well aware, if they're paying attention to what's happening in the world of assisted reproductive technology. The American Society for Reproductive Medicine has put out a recommendation for single embryo transfer. And many surrogates are well educated and know that's out there. So in the last 6 months, I've seen more requesting that's a new thing. Now they will, if it's medically, if there's a medical reason, they're open to it. And it doesn't mean all of them at all. I mean, we certainly have plenty who are open to carrying twins and to embryo transfer, but I'm seeing that come up more. And so that's another piece of the question in terms of what's important to you moving forward, to make sure you're sharing what's important. Is your plan to transfer 1 or 2? Go ahead.
Why do you see that being the case over the last 6 months? Why is that? Because of the success rates? Or
well, what's happened is, over all these years, the science and technology has improved dramatically. And so now with pre-genetic screening and embryo quality being stronger than it's ever been, the ASRM has recommended single embryo transfer for medical reasons because frankly, the goal of IVF when it first started was to achieve a baby, one baby. And we all sort of philosophically got used to multiples because medically they had to transfer multiples to make it work, to achieve a pregnancy. And that's not true anymore. And many doctors, and don't quote me on this because some of them might kill me downstairs, or upstairs, wherever we are. Some still say that transferring one versus two, the success rates are different. Many are saying the success rates are the same. If the quality is good, if the quality of the embryos is good. It changes if the quality of the embryos are not as good. But with good embryos, the recommendation is what single embryo transfer, because frankly, it is the healthiest pregnancy, is a single pregnancy, not multiples. And, I've certainly seen, cases over the last few years of 26-week deliveries, 24-week deliveries, for no reason other than it just happened with twins. So it really is an important, critical question that you have with your doctor when you're deciding, which way to go. Are you going to use, one or two? So, that's really important in terms of that conversation. I do end up having a lot of medical conversations, even though I'm a lawyer because I've been doing it a while, but, that's something I would definitely discuss with them. And every doctor is different. There's no question. Did you have another question? Okay. So, I think educating yourselves like you're doing today is critical in terms of figuring out how to do this. It really is hard, but you want to build your team to help you from beginning to end throughout the process to make sure you shouldn't be your own, project managers. It's like anything else. You want experts helping you along the way because it is complicated, and you want to make sure that you're working with people that know what they're doing from the medical side and the legal side and seeing you through your surrogacy journey so that you have a safe journey, a healthy one, and at the end of the day, you have a healthy baby that you're going to bring home, and maybe twins, it depends.